Welcome back to another designer profile video, and in this one we're going to look at the work of bspetty24, who's a prolific designer who's got a wide range of talents and puts out a huge variety of different types of courses and can really do a lot of things very, very well, um, except for captaining Dream Team. That said, this course from the following Dream Team, when pressure of captaincy was removed from his shoulders, was the finest course in the contest by quite some way. And it's just one of those where he absolutely nailed what he was going for. It was something, this type of course we hadn't really seen too much in the game. It really kind of dealt with using all of the trees and grasses and like the unlocked themes in a unique way, and we got a course that just completely fitted this really expansive plot. You could see loads all the way across. The big views were brilliant, but also like the planting and mix of grasses and trees and rocks, it just all felt very calm to play, really just enjoyable. If there's one course from this contest we wanted to go back and play over and over again when judging, this was it. So what we're going to do is take a little dive into what makes this course so great, why we particularly enjoyed playing it, and the sorts of choices that he made that made this really fit the environment that it has. Enjoy. So the first hole really sets the tone. You've got the hole and the fairway lying really lightly on the land. What we mean by that is it looks like it's just been laid down there and this was how the land was originally. Gentle undulation, nothing too crazy or in your face. Now you do want to hug the left-hand side really, because there's a little slope on the left of the green that's just going to gently funnel balls towards the pin. If you go further right, you've got those two bunkers that can be a little bit deceptive. This green has lots of interest, but because it's so big and there's lots of green slopes, it's actually pretty gentle and allows you to choose really how you want to go about attacking it. There's loads of different ways, and it's not really forcing strategy, which is a key theme of this course. My favourite par 5 was always the 6th, and it's a split fairway tee shot. You've got the two bunkers on the right, but all world left to play into. The further left you go, the more tricky the tee shot. You can see, as ever, for miles, and there's also a little rocky cluster that doesn't really come into play, but is also there visually breaking up the fairway. Green was what makes this one. It's banked into a hillside. Your approach is coming from the right hand side, so the further right you are, the more you can use that slope to funnel the ball in. And this green, unlike the first, is much more severe, as per it's a short par 5, and has this awesome little pin spot short right, which is probably my favourite flag on the course. I could have picked so many of the par 4s, but the one that actually grew on me the most, and therefore I think I like more and more, is the 10th, which is a short, very downhill par 4. Traverses the most serious elevation on the course, which is the same shared by 9 and 10. This one, you're hitting over a bunker that makes it all blind. It's about how far you want to go down and leave a pitch in to this really small, very tiny, tricky green that flows front to back, or do you want to lay back and leave a full wedge but off a very downhill slope? Again, it was your choice as to how you played this. There was no specifically right way. It's just asking interesting questions. With a shout out to the water planes on the 11th, my favourite par 3 is the 15th, which is the longest on the course and it's slightly downhill. What makes this great is that it's uncluttered. There's no bunkers in play. It's all about where you land the ball, running it onto the green, because this green flows from front to back gently. And therefore, you want to think about where you're pitching the ball to have it run up close to that pin, because you don't want to go past it. And it's just a real simple, clear idea, but executed brilliantly. Tying for my favourite par 4 was the 16th, which gets the benefit of an awesome setting, crossing, and just going past this lake on the left-hand side. But again, it's kind of the sloping that's the real star of the show. The fairway chokes down with those two bunkers on the right-hand side at landing zone, and the camber makes you kind of want to hedge your bets close to those bunkers. If you lay back, you've got a longer approach into this kind of tricky green, although there's a lot of space back. When the pin's front, you've got to be really carefully judging distance and elevation, and if you've gone too far, you might be leaving a pitch shot over that false front. If you lay back, it's quite a long shot in. So again, kind of your choice as to how you approach this one. And the 18th is our dramatic closer. We get the mountain backdrop, the rocks around the green, lots of bunkering, some really big and bold land movement, and loads of fairway to choose from. Those three central bunkers really split the fairway up. You could lay short, you can go right, which is probably preferable and shortens the hole, but into wind you could always go left to get a bit more of an angle. Then coming into this green site, again, it's one of the smaller ones on the course with some really interesting slopes. And And it's really your choice. You could land this short, you could throw it long and use that backstop. And different pins will change how you play this hole dramatically. So back in the designer, and what are the things that you can take from this and use in your own designing? Now, the first thing you'll notice is all these measure tools, and these are not mine. This is what was on the file when I inherited it. And for a course where you want all of these big open views, this is something that Petty does all the time, which is goes back to the tee and draws a little triangle as to what he wants you to see. And then that kind of frames his vision and goes, that's what the golfer's seeing. And on every single tee, you get these really big views. And that then helps him look at planting from overhead and go, okay, I can put some trees here and that works, but I can't go anywhere here, for example, because he wants you to see that far. Now, when he does that overall, you've got these really big views across the lakes. You get awesome vistas like on 14. And I think just the uncluttered nature of this course is one of the things that really draws it to me visually. Like, he uses negative space really, really well, which is just emptiness and that feeling of like belonging. You're just going on a little walk around this big plot of land. The second thing I would say that this really excels at is just absolute clarity of vision. He had a style that he wanted to execute, nailed it. Every single hole design, like the ones we've touched on, they're often really simple concepts. 10. How short an approach do you want to leave yourself off a downhill lie? That's it. Simple, but it's done really, really well. About if we go to fourth, let's go to 16. We have that. Fairway's going to narrow down. It flows this way. Where do you pick a tee shot? Do you go for it? Do you lay up? Do you kind of play halfway down? What sort of shot do you want to leave in? And that clarity of vision really came through, but also it was done in such a way, and this is something that I can definitely get too carried away with. It doesn't force a strategy. If you choose to go the other way, you've still got a shot. You might still make birdie. It can very much still be done. You don't need to play the course strategically. You can choose to do so and you will get an advantage, but the person who doesn't understand all of the angles and looks for them will still have a really good time and enjoy it. And the final thing I'd take away from this course is the greens and how they give each hole its character and how actually they're kind of changing dependent on the hole and the shot and adding variety in that way, which is something I particularly want to work on with my own designs. This one, first one, 43 by 29. It's a wide green. Got a lot of these slopes that are pushing the ball back onto the green and therefore kind of a bit more of a receptive green. We go to compare that to 10, which is just 23 by 20 and has slopes that are kicking you a little bit more away and running you off, and it's a little bit front to back. That's a far smaller target and requiring a very different approach shot. We compare that to 2. Well, we've got shout out to our semi-beer. It's 46 yards long, large frontier, middle, back plateau, and then this low area here. That one's got far more defined sections, but they're quite large, which is allowing you to hit that long running approach in and fits considering actually all the land movement that matters is in front and right of the green. We compare that one to the 6th. Well, the 6th is far more of a kind of quirky green, I guess. It's got this tiny little right plateau, which is just hilarious. Then this right section, it chokes down at the back. And the pins, even there, are pretty severe in spots. They're not easy, but for a short par 5, that makes sense. It's providing a very different challenge with that green compared to the second green. If we compare that, say, to 3, which is sideways, and it's depending on which side of the fairway you go to deal with this slope, every single green is kind of asking you to do different things. 5th has this big tier, or rather a long tier. It's not actually that tall compared to usual, but it just goes on for a long way. So which means that if you don't quite get up towards the back, you're leaving yourself a very long putt, and it's helping you for just the one pin. It also goes kind of more middle than towards the side, so you can run the ball towards this pin. That's asking you a very different question to, say, the 15th that we profiled, or 8, which has kind of this more front right portion and still has front pins where you're taking bunkers. So I guess the final lesson I take from this is we can do a lot just by thinking about what the green wants to be and just breaking out the fact the feeling they might need to be the same sizes and styles everywhere. There is definitely a place for that sort of design, and I'm not saying every single course should do this, but it is something that for this course where the greens were like one of the major features of it, I think it added a ton of interest. So I hope that helps. I think it's a really interesting course to pick up and pick apart, and hopefully you enjoyed it and play some of his more. He has got a few of them, and they could use some more plays. See you again soon.